Hey folks, my name's Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boots. Black Hand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
It's been a while, quite a while actually, since we've done a Q&A. So I figured I'd pull up a bunch of questions out of the comment section and just respond to your comments. This is sometimes easier actually. I wish I could do it every day, but it's just, like I said, putting out videos every day, trying to keep up with dropping at 6 o'clock every morning. It's a little overwhelming at times, but I I really enjoy responding to the comments because it gives back to you guys. Let you guys know I'm reading the comments. You know, when I have time, I respond to them. I just burned out my keyboard doing that. I got a new keyboard, but I really enjoy doing this because it gives right back to the individuals who I've selected uh, to respond to. But there is no method to the madness, right? I just pick comments, right? I mean, there's thousands of comments I scroll through, and I just pick, as I go along until I have like 20 comments, and that's how it's done. So the first comment we're going to respond to is Mike Lynch, 7271. Renee, I have to agree with many other posters. While we greatly enjoy the wiretaps and the awesome hotel recordings, this here, you breaking down old recordings of yourself, reflecting upon yourself, your attitude, etc., is primo. I know I'm not the only one who greatly looking forward to your reading of the Black Hand. Again, congratulations on your current success. It's abundantly obvious that you are putting your everything into your channel. Please don't fall into the trap many others have. Don't get a big head and don't rest on your laurels. You strike me as a worker, a hustler who won't let that happen. Peace and good fortunes. Hey, thank you so much, Mike Lynch. Well, as much as I like to bring you that kind of content, right? There's a finite amount of recording in that specific area where we're doing the Black Hand. But I'm gonna bring you all that I have, right? And anything else I encounter in the future, I'll bring it all to you. We're bringing it to you episodically. But there has to be a mixture of the type of content like Past the Wire, Wicked Women, hotel series like surveillance videos, because that's what the channel was founded on. But I really love doing this, right? I really, when I started doing these breakdowns of the video when we're making the Black Hand, I really got into it because when I'm watching myself speak, it's bringing back so many memories. And when you just watch a video, it's like kind of one dimensional, right? So it brought back a lot for me, and I'll continue them for you, no problem. And as for me, getting a big head and falling into the trap, now I'm not into the YouTube drama. This is not a platform where you're ever going to hear me talking negatively about people. Uh, just not my get down. I'm not into that YouTube drama. I don't have a big head. Uh, Not going to get one. I feel humbled to have the channel and that you guys support it. So you never have to worry about that. And as for being a hustler, you got it, brother. You know me. I'm grinding 24/7. I'm out here working and trying to bring you guys the best content possible. The next comment is from uh, Dana Hanson, 2601. Rene Enriquez Uncensored. Fire content as always. Had you ever been asked to evaluate non-warranted taps as officials attempting to gather info, yet not to use in court? Is that technically illegal for them to do? I know it probably isn't legally admissible, but I'd expect them to use any and all tools at their disposal to try and get the jump. Is it common for COs to offer up a cell phone per superior's direction, tap from the rip? Do COs take or are expected to honor any oath of anonymity? Would they face recourse for like walking by legal visits and seeing detectives rather than lawyers? Let me unpack that a little bit, right? Um, there are plenty of COs that take phones in. That's a reality, right? But I've never heard of them introducing tapped phones uh, in a case. I have never heard of that, right? So, but for them to record, I mean, I played a couple of rooftop conversations, a couple of ambient conversations where they have recorders in the area, right? The one thing, and they are introducible. They are introducible as evidence, right? Because there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in prison unless you're speaking with your attorney. Uh, so those things do happen. You got to assume that your cell can be tapped, your vent can be tapped, your yard can be tapped. You know, the day room can be tapped. Anywhere that they can place a listening device, you have no expectation of privacy in jail. In fact, all calls have an admonition that the call's being recorded for security and safety and security of the institution, blah, blah, blah. But what most people don't know is they can record you anywhere in there, and it is admissible. So, yeah, I've been asked to do that. I've done it a number of times, and I've played some of those recordings here on the channel. Unfortunately, they're not that clear. I mean, it's a lot of ambient noise because they're doing recordings on the rooftop and other areas that where there's just a lot of ambient noise. So they do it, and they do use it. You know, not just for intelligence gathering to get ahead of the game, but also as evidence in cases. All right, we're going to go to the next question. Luis Tamayo, 1088. Good morning, Rene. I have one question. I hope you don't take offense to it. Your tattoos, did you get them in prison or some of them on the streets? I mean, no disrespect, but I just wanted to know because I see you have a nice sleeve. I had two sleeves. Yeah, I got some of them on the streets before I went to prison. A couple of them, right? But the majority of them came from prison. And let me just expound on this a little bit, right? Because you hear a lot of guys say that tattoos got to be earned, and you got to get the blessing to get this tattoo, and that's all fallacy. That's all poppycock, bro. That's just straight bullshit, right? But if you're rocking like Maklaktomi, the two bars and three dots, which is 13, or you're rocking the Aztec icons, the word sur or campol. Campol is a Mayan word. It's actually a conjunction. Can meaning south and pol meaning a personification, so it means southerner, right? If you're rocking those tattoos, you, you're going to perform. You cannot rock those tattoos and not perform because you're saying I'm a sureño, I'm a soldado, I'm a soldier. So those are the only tattoos that got to be earned, and the only tattoos that have to be earned in prison are prison gang tattoos, like the shamrock for the brand and the black hand, or the word M or NF, right? They have a sombrero with a big machete going through it. Through it. That's for the NF. That's their symbol. And the BTF is like a gun tower with a big dragon wrapped around it. You have to earn those tattoos. You can't just rock them. I mean, there's repercussions for that. But yeah, I got them mostly in prison. I had a few when I went into the joint when I was a kid, but all my ink is basically prison ink. Next question is from Albert OC 2046. No disrespect to your older brother, Widow Shy, but what's keeping him alive? Isn't he a 74-year-old brother? Does his juice hold that much power? I'm sure you might be capable to a certain extent, but can't younger brothers take him off if they really wanted to? Yeah, but why? I mean, anybody can be eliminated, right? But what is the reason that they would want to do that to such a long-standing member? I mean, don't get me wrong. Members get eliminated all the time for the slightest of reasons. Um, and I think Shy does have juice. Not this omnipotent power that spreads through all states, right? But he has juice within the organization. He's a dedicated brother, and he's dedicated his life to the organization. He's chosen to go out in the shield. He's going to die at Carnal, and and I think that, and he's put in a lot of work for the organization, right? A lot of work. We're talking numerous eliminations. Shy has participated in, and he's like a 50-year member. I think he's longer than that. He's a long term member, but I'd have to ask that question, like, if it came to me as a campaign, hey, a bunch of younger brothers want to eliminate Shy. Why? What did he do? What regla did he break? What rule did he break? And what's your motivation for doing it? Now, I know he's conflicting with another carnal right now in the feds, which is Puppet Martinez, who's trying to wrest control of the feds from Shy. And Shy is supposedly the de facto commissioner. But the reality is that it's every man for himself in the feds right now. Their commission is kind of defunct, and there's a bunch of infighting going on in the feds. So, yeah, I don't see that happening to Shy. I would be shocked if it did, but it's not impossible. You know, never say never. Not in a mob. Let's go to the next question. It's from PAN8A. Uh, hey, Renee. When you did these interviews, did guys like Valdemar and Chris Blatchford bring you food, like fast food or anything like that? Yeah, they did, actually. You know, In and Out, you know, any color and stripe of food that you can think I've had, right? I've had sushi, mahi mahi, swordfish, filet mignon, you name it. I think the most impressed I was, the most heartfelt and touching thing that I experienced. Uh, well, before I get to that, let me say this. Yeah, I ate a lot. You know, I ate a lot of good food. Uh, See, the facilities where I was being held at are 72-hour facilities, and they used to give you these microwavable burritos or these little fast trays they have, and the food really sucks. You cannot survive on that. You cannot keep a human being for a year, 2 years housed there eating that type of food. I mean, they'd get sick. Uh, so they always make allowances to have food brought, right? And they'd store it in a refrigerator, or I had a refrigerator myself with a microwave. So I ate really well, and that's you know when people come, they bring food, um, and it was just part of the interview. You know, we'd have lunch, and it was just a normal thing to do. Some guys didn't; they were tightwads. I mean, real chintzy, cheap guys, and you could tell they were cheap. Never bring food, never offer anything, or maybe they just didn't like me. I don't know what the reason was, but the majority of the people that I met with brought me food. But there's one occasion that really touched me, and I remember it distinctly. I was in Walnut, California. I was being housed there by the FBI, and I hear the door open, bing, because there's a door. If anybody's ever been to Walnut, you know what it's like, right? They have a front door, then there's a cell front with a door. But I hear the door open, and I hear, "Hey, Renee, are you decent?" I said, "Yeah." I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. He says, "You got some visitors." So I see George Marin, a task force officer with the Mexican Mafia task force. He's the Los Angeles County Sheriff. He comes walking to the front of the cell. He says, "You got some visitors." And there's two kids come up, a boy and a girl. And he opens the door and they have this big platter. It's Thanksgiving. And he said, "My kids wanted to come bring you Thanksgiving dinner." And I was freaking touched, bro. I mean, he brought his children into my cell to feed me Thanksgiving dinner, to make sure I had Thanksgiving dinner. And it's one of the kindest and most considerate things I experienced in in all my years of incarceration. And I remember it to this day. And for that, I love George. George was the man. He's a good dude. He's retired now, and if you're out there, George, God bless you, bro. I still remember it, and I still appreciate it. Let's move on to the next question. Uh, this is LC 4295. Uh, it has a timestamp 2419. Are MM members looked at in California the same way that Italian mobsters were looked at in New York? Yes. Yes, they are. You know, these are the elite in California, and there's only like 50 of them in the entire state, maybe 60, you know? So they're treated as royalty, you know, extremely dangerous guys, well respected, uh, and all the gang members adhere to what they say. So they are treated the same way as Italian mobsters. Better, I would say, because they get everything they want: cell phones, uh, illicit substances, money, um, just any number of favors. It's they're well established in California. So they are. Let's go to the next question. This is from Nadine G1U. Nadine says, "Oh my God, the trust account info. Wow. I heard that there were guys that had more money in their trust accounts than some of us would ever see in our lifetime, working every day. I had no idea they could move money around. Wow. I wonder if the CDCR's inmate trust welfare fund trust accounting policies have tightened up so that this doesn't occur." I know that there's scrutiny now, Nadine. There's scrutiny on trust accounts. Uh, Everybody watches them now. After the seizures, the civil seizures in Pelican Bay, everybody's kind of hesitant to put money on their books now, unless they're dummies and they're putting tens of thousands. Because there was one guy with $90,000 on his books. And how do you explain that? Like a guy who's serving a life without sentence has $90,000 on his books from multiple sources that aren't related to him. So they did seize quite a bit of money during that process. In fact, I have one of the court orders that had Danny Roman's $30,000 returned to his books after 5 years of inactivity from Del Norte County District Attorney's Office. An attorney filed a petition, a motion to have that money returned, and it was returned. So money was seized. Some of those guys did not get their money back. Um, but here's the thing: is that inmates can have interest-bearing accounts now because for years the CDCR would allow you to put money in your trust account, inmate trust account. What they didn't tell anybody was that they're collecting interest on those monies, millions and millions and millions of dollars for decades. An inmate couldn't have an interest-bearing account, but the CDC deposited that money in a bank account and collected interest on those funds. So they were literally ripping the inmates off. Now, an inmate actually sued and won the right to have an interest bearing account. So you can now have an interest bearing account. You can have a bank account. You can have a CD. You can invest in treasury bonds. It's your right as an inmate, right? You can manage your money any way you see fit, and the CDC cannot obstruct you from it because it's your money, right? Uh, like if you have a substantial amount of money, the CDC might investigate you. Like, where did you get this money? You know, and they might try to seize it if they believe that it's part of an ill-gotten gain, right? But yeah, I think they have tightened up policies now, and guys are more circumspect about how they deposit money in their inmate trust accounts. Next question would be from Marley the Bear, 5637. Have you ever heard of the OK Corral in San Quentin? Where they were moving the Carnatas to Folsom and their numbers were a little low, so the TS members and the North attacked them. My uncle told me it was a bloodbath between two or three organizations. He said that he had a step up, and that's what helped him get noticed in the 70s. He has long since passed, but he would never talk about these stories. And one time we were drinking, and we straight out asked him, and he told us a couple of things. But in the end, he kind of felt the same way you did. The organization was different, or was never true. But I do know about the OK Corral. In fact, Weddle Buff Flores was one of the individuals. The founder of the organization was one of the individuals that got down in that brawl, and it was Texas Syndicate and Norteños against a few Cardenas, but the Cardenas got down. You know, they got down. No Cardenas were killed that day. Buff got stabbed up. Buff did get stabbed up, but he took himself to the cell and he sewed himself up. Uh, I recall the story because another brother told me exactly what happened, but it's been so many years. I just remember the OK Corral happened on the upper yard in San Quentin, right next to the Chow Hall, in a room that used to be called distribution. Not the one across this, away from Captain's Porch, the old distribution, right next to the Chow Halls. So it happened in that room, and it was an all-out bloodbath. You know, guys were in there just slinging steel, and everybody kind of crawled out of there at the end because everybody was stabbed at the end. But again, it's been so long, I don't know all the details. Maybe that would make a good episode if I can find somebody who remembers back in the day. Then then maybe we'll do an episode on it. But yeah, that was a real thing. It was called Shootout at the OK Corral, and it was Mexican Mafia, Texas Syndicate, and Nuestra Familia. Good question, man. That was a great question. Let's go to the next question. Hey Renee, did you or any of your brothers that were in the meetings ever suspect Chuco might be flipping, or do you think any of them was in question about any brother there? The reason why I'm asking is because I thought I heard something to the effect that they were questioning was funny with Chuco. I could be wrong. No, I don't think anybody. Let me retract that. One got an in specificity. Uh, Puppet Martinez from 18th Street straight out said Chuco's cooperating. Chuco's cooperating. Uh, he had called Chuco out because Chuco and Pee Wee were attempting to encroach on his territory, 18th Street, and Puppet had called him out. Puppet went out there with a bulletproof vest, a gun, and a couple of hand grenades, and was waiting for him. Immediately after he called Chuco out, they went and arrested him for possession of a bulletproof vest and all this other stuff, right? So Puppet knew something was wrong, and he called it. But Chuco had so much juice, nobody believed it. I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed it. I will say that they suspected Gibby. Gibby was suspect long before he flipped, right? He was getting politicked on early on because uh, there were rumors that he was a coward, that he pulled out a knife on somebody, he got beat down, got the knife taken, and he was crying, right? And there was another instance on Gibby where he took a knife out to the yard in his rectum, and there was supposed to be an attempted elimination. But Gibby, uh, the whole couple hours we're out there, the guy didn't come out to the yard, right? The whole couple hours we're out there is whining like a little child, like a little girl. Oh my God, it hurts. I have to go poop. Oh my God. So finally, he goes in early because you can't do recall from the yard. You cannot. Once you go in the yard in Tehachapi shoe, you got to stay out there. So Gibby's whining like a little uh, girl, uh, and everybody looked at it like, "Whoa, man, this dude." He was just a camarada at the time, right? Just a kid, and he's talking about how bad it hurts and how he has to use the restroom and it's going to come out, it's going to pop out, and so we finally told him, just go ahead and tell him you have to go. You're going to have an emergency. You have to use the restroom. That you have diarrhea, whatever it is. Tell him you got to go. So they let him into the yard, and he goes in there and he extracts the weapon, and needless to say, we never used him for that again. Uh, but they did suspect him. In fact, David Baez from Florencia is one of the key guys that pushed an issue on him. He saw 115 where it said that Gibby was crying, and that I believe he was crying, and that he got his knife taken away. He went in to stab somebody and was disarmed and beat up, and they called him a coward, and he was marked from then. Gibby would have got clipped had he not flipped, right? He would have got eliminated, and that's a certainty. But anybody else in that room? Nah, everybody was solid. Or so they thought. Let's go to the next question. This is from Kimura SOB 666. Buenos días a todos. When you speak of Cerritos, particularly Ortiz and Carmenita, my parents grew up close by on the Buena Park side. Random question. Do you remember that unfortunate plane crash that happened around that area? If they lived on the Orange County side, the Buena Park side, so had to be past Marquardt, right? That's Marquardt. That marks the Buena Park side, right? Uh, but yeah, I do remember that. I do. I wasn't there. I was in prison actually, but I remember a small plane hit a jetliner and like 100 and something people fell out of the sky, and there were body parts and plane parts all over Cerritos, right? Uh, and it happened right where I lived. Just a couple blocks away. There was bodies everywhere all over Cerritos, right? And but I do remember. I remember seeing it on the news, and one of the things that defined another thing that defined it was a tanker, a fuel tanker, uh, blew up on the 91. Right there, just lit up the whole 91. It blew up. That's another tragic event that happened there, and one of the things that came out of the news. Another thing that came out of the news, speaking of which, was the Jalisco cheese thing. Remember? People were eating Jalisco cheese and dying from salmonella or something like that. And that Artesia cheese factory, that cheese factory, Jalisco cheese, was in Artesia, California. So we would always get ragged for stuff like that. I do remember these instances. I'm going to go to the next question. Great question. Great video, Rene. I have a question. In Art Blackwell's book, he talks about two guys pulling. Oh, excuse me. This was from Law Abiding Savage. Great video, Rene. I have a question. In Art Blackwell's book, he talks about two guys pulling up at a car wash. Do you know who those guys were? No, I don't know who they were. That's Art's version of what happened, and I don't doubt that it did. But I know this: they weren't Emmett Gunners. They were not Emmett Gunners. And he doesn't have a pass. A lot of people believe, oh, he's been given a pass by the Mexican Mafia. He does not have a pass. Guys like that don't get passes, right? I do believe the Lord's blessed him and is protecting him, and I hope he's well and that he stays well. But I also know this: get around the right guys, and that will put a hole in his hat. That's a given. That's a given. There's no retirement from the Mexican Mafia. And I know that those guys weren't cardenales. In fact, I heard it happened up in Northern California. Could be mistaken, but that's what I heard. Right? They weren't Mexican Mafia soldiers because Mexican Mafia soldiers wouldn't even have said anything. They would have just walked up and boom, boom, boom. And who goes and shows a gun, you know, and supposed to do a hit and then doesn't do the hit? That's not the mob's get down, right? So you got to look at the story in its context, right? Don't doubt that it happened. Don't doubt the veracity of what Mr. Blanco says. But I'm telling you this right now, it wasn't the mob. Because if the mob would have pulled up on him, uh, he would have been eliminated. And I think the reason he's not pursued is because it's just opportunity, right? I'm sure they've had plenty of opportunity, but he's such low priority, right? They have bigger fish to fry. And it's really difficult to eliminate somebody. It's really difficult to like, expend resources, go eliminate somebody. Uh, and Art's been out for a long time, so God bless him. Next question. Uh, from Too Cool 849. Looks like Guero Caballo is making national news. You think he's heading to ADX for this one? I seriously doubt that. I think that something is in store for members like Guero Caballo, right? Well, number one, he's never going to get out of prison now. If he had any chance whatsoever, which is very slim, because all the confidential information, he's an active Mexican Mafia member. No active guy has ever been paroled by the BPH, the Board of Prison Hearings. But with this seals it, right? Like, no. Particularly the participation in eliminations. His crew was eliminating people, and the breadth of his organization, right? And that 18th Street is a transnational gang, and that specifically is a threat because they've been declared terrorist groups. Transnational criminal organizations are now terrorist groups, and they could do things like extreme rendition. Not like if they wanted to, they can go get guys from 18 and MS, any group that's been declared a transnational criminal organization with ties to terrorists like cartels. Cartels are considered terrorists. Um, they could do something like extreme rendition. And I don't know if the viewing audience understands what that is, but during Desert Storm and the war in Iraq, they would take suspected terrorist terrorist group members, and send them to countries, to these black sites where they had these unofficial prisons that were run by the CIA. So, Güero Caballo can get snatched up. Any of them can get snatched up. Any group that's been declared a terrorist group or has association with the terrorist group can get snatched up. So I think something's in store for him. I think something's in store for the entire organization. The CDCR is going to have to take action at some point, right? With guys like this hitting national headlines, committing crimes like there's no tomorrow. But that's the organization. It's part and parcel. It's the nature of the beast, right? But he is an unindicted co-conspirator. He has not been indicted in this case, which surprises me. The feds don't like to indict guys with life sentences because it takes part of the problem and puts it in the feds. And the feds don't like having cardenales over there because they're so violent. All right, let's go to the next question. The next question is from Giving Spirit, Rene. Rene Enriquez Uncensored. There's a new book by Biana Roman telling her side of the story, the Roman Empire. She must not want to be in protective custody or something. Yeah, I think that's the case, right? I mean, she's essentially has a OnlyFans page uh, where she's showing provocative pictures of herself, which is, you know what? If I could do it, I'd do it too. I don't knock her for that. She's a hustler, dude, and she should tell her story. I think that she should tell her story because everybody's tried to narrate it with their narrative, right? Popeye this, her that, this and the other, right? And nobody knows it like she knows it. She lived it, right? She paid the price. She did 17 years. She should be able to tell her story. You know, I'm looking forward to the book. I am number one guy in line to buy that book because I really want to read it. I mean, I worked on the case. You know, I knew who Viana was. I knew her father very well. I've done a couple of videos on them both, right? So I really would like to see the comparison because the book I have the entire case file, right? And if there's contradictions in the case file in the book, then I'll be creating content on it. I'm not trying to discredit her or anything like that. I wouldn't do that, right? But if there's or glaring spins on the narrative, then yeah, I'll probably respond to it. But not a reaction video. I don't do those, right? Uh, and I don't think she's in hiding. She has nothing to hide for. She's done nothing wrong, and God bless her. Let her hustle. I see people critiquing her, and and hey, that's who she was. That's what she did. It's not who she is today. I've always been a supporter of her from day one, and that's not going to change because she came out with a book. I hope it's a good book. I need to read a good book. All right, next question. Yoda Man, 1988. Feed me. Did you ever think you would be this far in technology? You came a long way, Esther. You know how to use your words and take control of the conversation. I mean, I had technology. I got my first computer when I was in Montebello PD, Monterey Park PD. Um, I told my then wife, uh, get me a computer. I'll make money with it. And she said, what do you need with a computer? What do you need with a computer? How are you going to make money? And I wrote my first book. I wrote my first book, and I started using the computer. I didn't know what the heck it was, right? I would freaking delete stuff, and I'd crash the computer, and I'd have to have an IT guy come set it up for me until I learned, right? I would open up a program like, say, Pinnacle, which is an editing software, right? Or Word or whatever, and I just clicked the little icons to see what they did, and I was self-taught. I didn't take any courses in computers, but I was fascinated by it, right? I was fascinated about this intelligence. I mean, this is the wave of all time. I mean, we're not going to regress in technology. We're going to advance. So I think it's incumbent upon everybody to stay within the curve, right? You want to know about technology. So I always anticipated learning about technology. That wasn't a difficult thing for me. And thank you so much for um, your compliment about my use of words. I taught myself along the way. And I did that with a common dictionary. I would write down one word a day, and I would use it in a sentence, and I would write that sentence over and over and over, right? Like a whole page, boom, 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 boom. You know, like she had effervescent personality. Effervescent is like bubbly and sparkly, right? But it's a nice way to say she had a great personality, right? It's just different, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean, I thank you so much. I truly appreciate your compliment, bro. Okay, here's another one. This is a long one. This is 865 style. Great video, Renee. I asked Mickey Scars, who was a captain of the Gambino crime family in New York, a question, and he didn't seem to exactly get what it was I was asking. My question to him was, you guys ran states and had so much influence, so why don't you guys plant your flag on the inside? So when you guys go to prison, you were taken care of and or looked after. Because obviously there aren't anywhere near the amount of Italians in America or in prisons to have the sheer numbers that laeme has throughout prisons, and clearly Southerners. So I asked if you guys had so much pull, why didn't you do it? I'm paraphrasing at the end, right? Um, but yeah, the Mexican Mafia has done that, and I don't understand why the Italians. I don't think the Italians are represented that much in prison. I mean, there are Italian uh, uh, inmates in federal and state prisons throughout the United States, right? But those groups don't have a stronghold. The only Anglo uh, are Caucasian, and I totally apologize if I'm being politically incorrect by using those terminologies, right? The only white group that really excels at dominating prisons is the Aryan Brotherhood. And I know there are offshoots in Texas and all these other places. I don't know if they're part of the mother entity, the Aryan Brotherhood. Uh, and the other group after that is the Mexican Mafia, right? The Mexican Mafia is the primary dominator of prisons in California, you know? And the feds, not so much. Feds are a little bit different. I'll be doing an episode on that, on which prisons are controlled by who, because there are so far and few in between, right? But the Mexican Mafia has done that. As I mean, that's bread and butter. Control the inside, you control the outside. That's a phrase that came out of American Me. I don't think that was the predominant philosophy of the organization. They just wanted to create a super gang, right? That philosophy wasn't espoused, uh, but it is true. You control the inside, you control the outside, because all gang members are going to come to prison, and who controls the prisons? The Mexican Mafia. I don't know why the Italians haven't done it. Maybe they don't have the numbers. And and it's their objective never to go to prison. They don't want to go to prison. They end up going to prison, but they don't want to be there. Whereas the Mexican Mafia doesn't care if it's there. I think that is the defining factor. Let's go to the next question. Rene, did you pay your crew members like a percentage? Oh, of course. In fact, my guy Huck, he took the lion's share of the money. I took whatever he gave me, and I was cool with that. I mean, we had a rim shop, we had a nightclub, we had a bunch of stuff, right? But I let them take the lion's share because they did all the work, and I looked at it as a cumulative um, thing. If I was getting 200 here and 500 there and 150 here, by the end of the month I was making good money. They were making like they were the ballers, right? I wasn't a baller. I was just a blue collar guy, and I understood this. In effort to keep my guys loyal and happy, I let them make the most of the money because that's how you keep people happy. Like if they're not happy, if you're stepping on their neck and you're breaking them, they're going to jump ship. They're going to crew hop on you, which is punishable by elimination as well. But I never had that problem. You know, guys wanted to come to me. I would get letters all the time, and I would have a Huck contacting me or a secretary come visit me and say, "This guy wants to come over. You know, he wants to be on your team." And like, okay, cool. As long as they weren't working with another member or related to another member or encroached on the territory of another member, I brought them in. I got guys in Victorville, Lenox, uh, everywhere. Cudahy, Bell Gardens, White Fence, you name it. I had people everywhere. Not just Artesia. That's a fallacy that only Cardenas function in their area, because back in the day, it was like the gold rush. You could run out and plant your flag in any unclaimed territory, and that was you. But it also became a hassle. There was a lot of conflict in that. So yeah, I paid them. They paid me, but they made the lion's share of the money. Let's go to the next question. Uh, Occupying Today says, "Do you have do you have to pay going rate for dope in prison, or was it mostly free in there for you?" It was free. I mean, I I was the guy. You know, we would get all the stuff in, me and Jocko, and even when I was in SNY, I was the guy. Right now, if I went outside of my own dealings, then I went to another like a dealer, and I asked him like, "Hey, let me get a gram or let me get $100 paper." I'd have to pay the going rate, but typically it's this: "Hey, let me get a gram or let me get a whatever," and I'll kick you back down double when I hit right when I get mine in. I'll give you double. or I'll take care of you. Always those kind of courtesies, right? So you didn't really have to pay. It was more of a courtesy with all the connections in there in prison. But when I was active, no, I didn't have to pay for dope. People would send me I never had more dope than when I was in prison. I mean, and I've never been more strung out than when I was in prison. It's back when I was using. Obviously, I don't use it anymore. I haven't in a long, long time. But yeah, we had plenty of dope. Next question. Warrior 9359. ¿Qué onda, Rene? I met this cat, Art Blackos, years ago at this play at Victory Outreach. I asked if he could pray for me, and we walked to the back, and instead of praying over me, once he saw all the people waiting to buy his book so he could sign it, and he made a beeline and went straight over there. Left me standing there like he'd rather be a celebrity than a pastor. I tripped out. But I waited for him while he took pictures with his fans, and then he acted stupid, like I hadn't asked for prayer, so I split. But I knew immediately that God showed me this Vato's true colors, and it was really about. I don't hate this dude. Well, let me stop right now. Um, I get it, bro. I get it. I had an instance where somebody went to one of his services, and they knew me, right? And they told me that somebody in the crowd says, "Hey, you're an ex-Mexican Mafia member, like that guy, boxer." And he immediately snapped at him and said, "Don't you ever compare me to that guy. That guy is a testifies for the state. I testify for the Lord." Like he immediately judged me, right? And that's why I have this huge opposition to Victory Outreach. They play active politics like they are better than everybody else. I'm not down with that. Like if you're a believer, what does it matter what I've done? If I'm a child of God, if I'm a Christian, then who are you to judge me? I've heard a lot of these stories about our black horse, and I'm not judging him at all. I'm not judging him at all. He judged me, and that's just the way it is. I would never set foot in a Victory Outreach Church. I heard too many horror stories about what they do there, and yeah, I think those are wolves in sheep's clothing. Half those guys are still active playing gang politics. They want to be cool in the hood, and yeah, I'm not down with that. Even the little plays they have, where they're like drive-by shootings and all that stuff, and yeah, no church I've ever been to does that. But again, I'm not judging. Sounds a little judgy, but I'm really not. He's a believer. I'm a believer. I hope that he's matured in his walk, and if not, then that's cool too. That's cool too. I don't care either way. But I hear you, brother. I hear you. Yeah. I'm gonna go to the next question. This is Richard Hernandez 427. This was a good banger. I met Art in VO when he first started going to church. He was a little bit arrogant. I understand he was a new convert, but a lot of people were, including the pastors, treating him like he was a celebrity. I know for a fact he would get in the flesh when Pastor Sonny had him or another big homie in his office. Anyway, he has come a long way. Even though I've seen his drama so many times, he has mentioned things about what he did in the Pinta. My question is, did he exit the mafia before you got made? He did. Art was in and out before I even got made. I was made in 1985, and Art had dropped out sometime before that. Uh, and you look, there's a lot of comments about Art in there. I'm not saying whatever, right? That's your experience with him, and nobody can tell you what your experience was because that's your experience, right? And I've never met the guy. Don't care to meet him. Never going to meet the guy. Um, but I'm sure he's come a long way since then. I think we all have matured in our walk, and I hope that he's matured in his. Next question is uh, El Mero Vergas dash JY7MI. Okay, El Mero. Uh, have you gotten back in contact with Chuco? He should write a book on what happened to him. I have not been in contact with Ernie, and I would love to. He was a really good friend of mine. In fact, I'm going to do an episode on him real soon. I'm going to do a profile on him, And I'm going to tell you guys something that's going to shock you. I'm not going to tell you here, but it's coming. It's coming. And I think you'll like the episode on Chuco. I have not been in contact with him. I would love to see him, take him out for a beer or something, or have a steak or something together. Okay, next question. Is Mike nuts? Mike underscore nuts. What happened to all those stocks and bonds? Were you allowed to keep it? No, I redeemed them. I redeemed them all. In fact, I redeemed all that stuff, released all my money, and in the end, I ended up with no money. I think I ended up with $7,000. The person who I relinquished to spent it all, and it's the way it went down. You know, I ended up with nothing. And when I walked away from the mob, I think I had like $7 grand cash, and that was it. For all those years of working, all those years of collecting and extorting, all the money was gone. But that's all well and good. I didn't need that money. I'm doing okay now. Next question. Let's go to the next question here, if I can find it. Gets 187. Can you do something on your time as a youngster? Any OG homies in your hood that gave you any clecha? How you came up, juvenile hall, YA stories, climbing the ranks of the Mexican Mafia? You know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start because we're doing this series on the making of the Black Hand. But if I take in a chronological, episodic series about just what you're saying here, I think it'd be interesting, right? About how I heard about the mob and how I came up in the hood and first going to the joint. I'm gonna do all that, right? We're gonna get to that really soon. We just have so many irons in the fire right now. The next one is reading the Black Hand. That's coming soon. As soon as we finish up, I might even start it before we finish the videos, just so it'll intertwine and you can see the videos and hear me reading the book with the anecdotes and the commentary. So, yeah, that's coming up soon, brother, for sure. Okay, I think we're gonna do one more question, and this is from David R. Rangel Sr. David R. Period Rangel Sr. I thought that when Mundo and Sailor Boy came out of prison, that they were responsible for creating this concept, and they called it the gospel. Or maybe I am wrong. Please clarify. Good video. Yeah, they didn't come up with this concept. They did not come up with the concept of the program. That had nothing to do with Ramon Zera or any of the Mustache Pete's. This was all Pepsi generation stuff. This was me, Chuco, Pee Wee, Smilon, Tonito. But Shy was there, Black Dan was there, a bunch of carnadas were involved. Everybody played their role in it, but it wasn't Mundo and Sailor Boy with their gospel. That's a whole different thing. That was eliminating people, and they call it spreading the gospel, right? All right, folks. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. I made it kind of super long for you for a Monday. Hope you guys dig it. Let's get those watch hours up. Please watch the video in its entirety. Even if you got to come back to it and watch it again to finish it off. But mainly for the truckers, the workers, the stay-at-home moms. I've always said that the gangsters are the guys that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, work at 2 jobs, so they can get the best stuff for their kids and pay their bills. They sacrifice, right? But what about those moms? What about the wives that stay home and cook and clean and take care of the babies and forego any career just so they can take care of the household? That's gangster. That's gangster, you know? And that's the truth, bro. I don't think we give moms and the women in our lives that much credit. But when you look at it, that shit is hard. You try that. We're used to cleaning this little tiny cell in prison, right? We do this little tiny cell, and we GI it, we Bonnaroo it, we shine the floor, we do our little laundry, but they do all the laundry. They clean the whole house. They do the dishes. They do everything. They scrub. They cook, and it's an all-day job, and they don't get paid. So that's gangsters. So all the gangsters out there, the hardworking men, the stay-at-home moms, the career moms, you guys are gangsters. In my book, you are. Hope you enjoy the content, folks. With that said, peace out. Stay safe.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boots.